evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on 12 stories. I am Oyi Opala. Let's begin. In Kanbe, faith narrowly spared a group of travelers when their vehicle violently overturned into a roadside ditch, not because of measures or emergency response, but by sheer unexplainable luck. What could have been another headline in the long traffic litany of road fatalities was avoided this time. But their disaster cast a harsh, unflinching light on the deadly state of infrastructure in Bamenda and across the Midland zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. The cause: a road so broken, so neglected, it has become a dirt trap, a symbol of decades of abandonment. Locals call it bumpy, but that word hides a brutal reality: crumbling surfaces, yawning potholes, and a terrain so treacherous it swallows lives and livelihood. This is not just poor maintenance, it is systemic neglect, a calculated silence, a slow grinding punishment of the people who have long cried out for dignity, recognition, and basic human decency, and have been met only with the cold indifference of the octogenarian Paul Biya's regime. The roads of Bamenda tells a story not only of decay but of deliberate marginalization, and for the people of Ambazonia, every journey becomes a roll of the dice. Well, all this and more we'll discuss on tonight's Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. All right, tonight we'll start with the GCE bird as they revise exam dates amidst Ambazonian's pressure. Also tonight, a 20-year-old student almost misses sitting for the GCE examination. La Republic de Cameroon abandoned project condemns Ambazonian population to deadly roads in Binka. Tonight, we'll take a look at the neglect of the Ambazonians by the Paul Biya's regime as it's seen through the deteriorating roads of Bamenda. A native of Pinyin, identified as Pen, about 19 years old, was rounded up by gang members on the 3rd of June. All the African scene, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has described the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as getting worse by the day. Meanwhile, U.S. votes UN Security Council resolution calling for permanent ceasefire in Gaza. All these and more we'll speak on tonight on Undaunted. Let's get into the news briefings. Oh, well, terrified of any eventual consequences for disrespecting the Monday goes down, the GCE board has announced revised schedules for exam dates conflicting with Ambazonian's ghost town mandates. Well, the sessions initially set for June 6th are now confirmed for Friday, June 20th and Saturday, June 21st, 2025. Well, last week we reported of the GCE putting exam on a Monday ghost town. Well, a press release issued yesterday, June 4, 2025, by the General Certificate of Education Board's Transition Management Team has clarified the revised schedule for the 2025 GCE examination. Pursuant to a colonial ministerial press release from the 28th of May 2025 concerning postponement due to the Feast of Tabex, the IL-ADA, the GCE, and the TV examinations previously slated for Friday, June 6, 2025, will now be written on Friday, June 20th, 2025 for the GCE and Saturday, June 21st, 2025 for the TV. The communique specifies that other subjects already on the timetable for Monday, June 9, 2025 will remain unchanged. This clarification updates earlier reports which had indicated a broader shift of the postponed exams directly onto the ghost town Monday. The La Republic de Cameroon's military maintains that the calendar adjustment aims to enable Muslim student teachers and invigilators during the tabax phase. However, the initial confusion and the broader pattern of scheduling decisions continues to draw criticisms regarding their potentially dangerous implication for students in the war-faced zones of southern Cameroon. For years, Mondays in southern Cameroon have been enforced as ghost town days by the Ambazonian leaders, and it is characterized by a cessation of transport and severe restrictions on movement. While the main postponed exams are now set for Friday and Saturday, the overall approach to calendar planning by colonial central authorities is still seen by critics as failing to adequately account for these documented challenges. Students in Ambazonia no longer have to face difficult choices between adhering to ghost town directives, which could lead to missing exams, or defying them and facing potential security risks. Despite the well-documented challenges of movement and security on Mondays and the general instability in Ambazonia, the Colonial Ministry had not offered specific provisions or alternative arrangements for affected candidates. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, you joined us on Undaunted the day we brought this to the fore, and you were hopeful that the right changes would be made. Today, we've seen the change, and for some very particular reasons, none of the dates were put on Monday. And so somehow, Ambazonians and Ambazonians' children would not be frightened or begin to get worried on how to have that examination. What would you say about this new development?
Well, I think we had said here last week that the schedule of exams GCE on Monday was an attempt to challenge or to affront Ambazonia goes down, what we call back home the countryside. And so we had insisted that they should change that schedule because putting an exam on the day which they are not supposed to work, which the children will not be able to come for different reasons, is double punishment. The children are already suffering, they've not gone to school for almost a whole year, at least not complete. When it comes to writing the exams, Monday we said exams were single. So the time I missed part one of history, or geography, or physics, or any subject, that might sound the end of it. And so if they postpone it, for whatever reason, these are fictionless. They can give no official reason, how to cover the running away with their tail folded within their books. What is important for us is that it should change. They're not going to say that we're changing this thing because the Ambazonian guys, government threatened us. They will not do that. But they look for an excuse to do it their own way. So if the feast of the tabaski, the reason, so be it. We're not concerned with the feast of the tabaski. We're concerned with the security of the children. We're concerned with what the children get out of exams. And so that is what it is. The bottom line we said, and we're still saying here, exams are very, very good for children to write. But the priority should be the security of the child. Because if you miss an examination this year, next year. But if in the country defy whatever is there, you lose your life or you lose a limb, you're not going to recover that life another time. So for candidates who are going to write, for parents which are going to write, the concern we have said and insisted should be the security of their own children. the safety of their own children. And so that's it. The minister can call you any name. What we're advised strongly is that they change. They just can't say that date, put it on date. Just as simple as good morning. The children will still be willing to come. The teachers will still come. Those who supervise exams, they are paid on supervision on day-to-day basis. If you don't do on Monday, you survive on Tuesday, you still be paid the amount of money that you have. So the fires should not be an answer to us. This is what we need. But for the parents, and security is their own safety, is their own guarantee. You should be sure you're safe. Be sure that you don't lose your lane. Be sure that you're not caught in the crossfire. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. All right, moving on tonight's report. A 20-year-old student of Nabak Secondary School narrowly avoided jail time after being caught stealing plums at Stampede, thanks to the population that have grown to know that the colonial police officers are not friends to Ambazonians. Now, this happened in Boya just a day before his participation in the General Certificate of Education, the GCE A-level exams was set to begin. The incident occurred around noon on Wednesday, June 4th, where the student, battered by hunger, ventured into a plum farm situated a few meters from the FOMIC near the entrance of the former GCE board office in Sandpit. He began harvesting plums unaware that the owners of the property, a couple in their 60s, were working nearby. The couple raised an alarm upon noticing the intrusion. In an attempt to catch the student, the husband sustained minor injury while the wife's medicated eyeglasses were broken. While other youths around caught the young man and took the young man to the community leader instead of the colonial police. Well, irritated youths in the area captured the student, and rather than handing him over to colonial, so-called law enforcement brought him to the quarterhead, who is known as the community leader. A crowd followed, shaming him publicly for stealing what many considered a trivial item like a plum. At the quarterhead's compound, the student was made to sit on the floor or ground, encircled by members of the community. Upon questioning, it was revealed that he was a student preparing to sit for the GCE A-level exam starting the next day. Though unfamiliar to many, several students came forward to confirm that he was indeed a student of Nabak. So instead of taking him to the colonial police, which may prevent him from writing the exams, they decided to take him to the quarterhead and the leader. Well, it was claimed that the boy's family promised to ensure that students would stay out of trouble moving forward. As the students were being shamed, the plum owners remained adamant that he would be taken to the colonial police station. But after much pleading from the community, it was agreed he would instead apologize and pay for the damaged glasses. All right, and then moving on, we also found out that the boy sobbed and got very sad, and of course was unable to make contact, also broke down in tears. The two embraced each other and let the moment go. Well, despite the sympathy, community leaders insisted the students face some form of discipline to deter others. But the question this evening, Barrister Mbeseha, is to find out, do you think that a student, we are not trying to project stealing here, but a student who goes into a farm to get plum to eat is obvious is due to an out of hunger. Do you think that, flogging and beating him is of necessity here? I mean, people confirmed he's a student of the school, the Nebak school, which obviously meant that he's known to some level of, to a degree, he's known to some persons to a particular level. So do you think that it's okay for him to be beaten, or he should have probably gone on being hungry? Because the report indicated that this student claims he has not had food for a while, but stealing shouldn't be encouraged. All of this just shows the stress and pressures that the youth, teenagers in Ambazonian would have to go through on a regular basis. What would you say about the situation? We're talking about a school student stealing plum from a farm. It's quite dicey because you wouldn't promote hunger. Neither, okay, you wouldn't promote stealing, neither would you allow him to stay hungry. Vice Mbeseha.
Well, see, the things which we are narrating now calls into issue a lot of things. It calls into issue young kids. There's something we call in law juvenile offenders. Children, kids are kids, wherever they are. They remain kids. And for that reason, they're treated differently when they come to criminal offenses. Good or harvest 2 plums, or harvest a cup of corn, or take 1 potato from the ground by a child. Who is the child? The child is somebody under 18. To eat, you don't want to eat it. Even to one sell. Is that what would warrant a civilized society to take that child to jail? Certainly not. Before we had the jail courts, before we had the even in our community, we lived with that child. We lived with this. What the children are going to steal plums is not new. They do that all the time. They are juveniles. And so, the fact that the child is going to harvest a plum to eat because he's hungry, or even just to go and sell it, they get $2. Is that what should take that child to jail? You ruin his or her life, the next, for the rest of her life? Certainly not. And so it calls on us on how to treat juvenile offenders. When we were in Southern Cameroon, I can say this explicitly, our judicial and legal system had room for juvenile offenders. If that child ended up at the police station and had to go to court, or the magistrate court, they were treated as juveniles. So, for example, instead of sending that child to prison for 6 months, then you and me go to adults, the child will be sent home with remand. The child will ask to go and cut grass in school. He will be reprimanded for reformation. That's what happens. And so, what they did, I think, was the right thing. The chief of the village, or whatever, in quarterhead, or whatever they call him. That's the responsibility of an adult. That's a father. That's a parent who knows what to do. Even talking about GC exams, which you're talking about. I've seen children being caught there, whether for having some examination leakages, papers in their pockets or whatever. Those things happen all the time. How do you handle it? The examination board should have its own code of how to handle those minor things because they expect them to happen. That's why you have examination security to prevent those things from happening. But if they do happen, how do you handle them? How do you handle them? So it's a subject for reflection. I guess all people working in the GCA board, all people who children go there are adults. We would like their child to go to jail or to be banned from writing the GCA for 5 years because the child found a piece of paper in his or her bag. I don't believe that. So those people who are in those things should be able to work out solutions which are acceptable, but which are also reasonable to the child, because the child has a future to live. The child was just writing GCA and is still very young, he's not yet working. He's hoping that if he passes, or if she passes, that's the beginning of life for him or for her. He probably go to university, come and get a job. But if you rent that child at that stage, because he stole a cup of maize to write the GCA, because you want to harvest a plum and head to write the GCA, you have ruined that child forever. You have turned that child who would have been a great child tomorrow into the future, into a delinquent permanently. And so that is how Ambazonian should work. We recognize crime, but we recognize also things that can affect punishment. We recognize in particular juveniles because there was what we call the juvenile court. The juvenile courts were not courts like what you had in people do the community where they would create a court by decree. No. The juvenile court was provided in one law only, what we call the 1955 High Court law, which dealt with everything and the evidence. If the child was being brought, if the person was being brought before the court, You was a certain your age should be, say, 16. Before in the juvenile section, you will handle differently. District court that will handle somebody 40, 50 who are broken into a house. That will handle a man 40, 50, 60 who are raped a woman. And so again, this is an example of it. You find two children in primary school, two young children, boy and girl, 14, 15. They were messing up, or one is just touching the other one. You call it rape if I were the one doing it as an adult. But when that child is doing it, maybe they're just playing, they don't even know the consequence of what is happening. But the bottom line is that these children, they are juveniles. By every meaning, they are juveniles. And so they should be handled differently because they are juvenile offenders. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. And so over to the issue of road, there are basic things Ambazonians are suffering from: hunger, which we just finished talking about, which is very, very important. Even the young ones are faring and looking for ways to survive. Now let's get into the roads. And from the roads reports this evening, we'll start with the Binka Nkambe roads. And so a car overturned in a ditch yesterday in Binka Nkambe with its occupants narrowly escaping what could have been a fatality on a road deemed unfit for travel. Yesterday, June 4th event is but one of the many cases of deliberate abandonment by the colonial government, leaving Ambazonian communities to navigate deadly infrastructure in zones consumed by war. In Binka, near Nkambe, a vehicle screened off the road and violently overturned into a narrow ditch yesterday. The fact that the occupants emerged without severe injury is not a testament to safety, but rather a stroke of sheer luck on a road system that has become a death trap. The driver reportedly lost control due to the road's bumpy nature, a euphemism for a surface so utterly dilapidated it poses a clear and present danger to life. This is a reality for southern Cameroon. The roads here are not only merely poorly maintained, they are actively disintegrating. The Amazonian community is forced to suffer the consequences of decades of systemic neglect and an active policy of abandonment by the Yaoundé colonial government. The infrastructure crisis is not new, but it has accelerated into a catastrophic collapse, especially under the shadow of the ongoing 8-year-long war. The already hazardous conditions worsen during the wet season. Roads become impassable, quagmires ridiculed with hidden hazards that lead to accidents like the one witnessed yesterday. Yet no significant action is taken. The very war that has gripped these regions continues to be cited as a reason for inaction, a cynical excuse that marks the deeper issue of the colonizers' deliberate disengagement. Construction projects are abandoned and maintenance is non-existence. In contrast, La République du Cameroon Central region, where Yaoundé State sees nothing and says nothing about all of this infrastructure and all of this decay. Right, stand base here. Let's take this another issue of road neglect, but this time around is in Bamenda. Let's take the Bamenda report, and when we come together, we'll analyze the Binka report and the Bamenda road report. And so the extent of neglect of these roads are just so unfair. So unfair. So the state of the roads in Bamenda, the capital city of the Midlands zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, is a stark reflection of the neglect and disregard that Ambazonians have suffered under the Paul Biya's regime. The deteriorating nature of the city's roads is a glaring example of the lack of investment and attention that Ambazonians has received from the colonial government. This is another strategy by the colonial regime to punish Ambazonians. Despite being a major urban center, Bamenda roads have been left to decay with potholes, cracks, and erosion becoming a common sight. The poor state of the road not only reflects the mobility of but also has a significant impact on the economy, an economy already paralyzed by the ongoing war in Ambazonia. The lack of maintenance and repair of the road is a clear indication of the colonial government's lack of priority for Ambazonians' development. The situation is particularly there in areas like the Meter Quarter stretch, where the size of the potholes covered with water is so large that cars often get stuck. Motorcycles can't even attempt to use the stretch, making it nearly impossible for residents to navigate the area. The roads have become a hazard, posing a significant risk to the safety of drivers and passengers. So the neglect of Ambazonian's infrastructure is not limited to roads alone. The region has suffered from a lack of investment in other critical sectors such as education, healthcare, and social amenities. The BS government's neglect has led to a decline in the overall quality of life for the people of Ambazonia. The people of Ambazonia are calling on the colonial regime to take immediate action to address the infrastructure deficit, or better still, let Ambazonians go. The colonial government must prioritize the repair and maintenance of the roads and invest in other crucial sectors to improve the lives of the people. The neglect of Ambazonia will only continue to exacerbate the existing tensions and hinder the region's development. And so it's time for colonial regime to take responsibility for its action and prioritize the need of the people of Ambazonia. The deteriorating roads of Bamenda is obviously a wake-up call for the colonial regime to re-evaluate its priorities and take concrete steps to address the nation's infrastructure challenges. Bryce Mbeseha, you just saw the potholes in Bamenda. I just saw the news. We also gave you the news in Binka Road. Merging the two reports together and all of the other roads that we have reported here severely on Undaunted, struggling to see a new face. How much more can Ambazonians bear, and how much more can they beg?
Well, I think the question should be, how much more can we take and for how long? How long can we endure all this? That should be the central question. See, about turning somewhere and falling into the bush there, which is call it Binka somewhere, it's not new. It is not us saying it, by their own records, by the records of their own day. The regions of the Northwest, the so-called Northwest and Southwest, and most particularly Southwest, are the least developed in terms of road infrastructure. This is their own records, officially. You must ask yourself why. Why are they the least developed? Let us start from the Northwest. Northwest is neighbors to the region of Cameroon. The western region of Cameroon has some of the best roads in the whole country. And that's their neighbor. So why don't have been replicating what is in the west to the northwest? It is not punishment. Again, bad roads in general can be described as death trap. They are death traps because the consequences are clear. If the road is not good, the vehicle will overturn. That's a fact. When vehicles overturn, people will get injured or die. That's a fact. So it is not an invention. Why this death trap is what we should try to answer. Why? Why are they doing this to us? Is it a deliberate punishment? I think so. Because they cannot complain in terms of lack of resources. If we all agree, and they agree, that what they call the Northwest, for example, and the Southwest region, they provide about 60% of the national economy, the GDP. That's what they provide. And then how can they not have roads? Why not have roads? If they produce so much, it is economical to the country. Even in their country where they all take loans to do anything. If they went to the World Bank and wanted a loan, and they say, give us the security for this loan. Based on their own record, they say, well, we want to do a loan back under in the Northwest or Southwest. These two regions give us 60% of the economy. That's a good guarantee for you to get a loan. So it is, to me, If you're asking me why, the reason is simply that they want to punish us. And let us deal with Bamenda again. We've said this so many times. Those are roads inside the town, city roads. Is it not 6 months ago that we found the French ambassador in Bamenda promising billions to develop the town Bamenda, not even now, to develop the town Bamenda? 6 months have gone through, we have nothing. The rain falling is not an excuse because known rains are known. They know when the rains will start to fall. The rainy season is everything that we ever know forever that we have existed. When that come April, the rain starts to fall. So it's not news that rain is falling. No. Rainy season is just a normal thing. And so again, Bamenda, why Bamenda? Why are the promises that they made? To develop Bamenda, to improve the road infrastructure in Bamenda. They were not made by Yaoundé. They were made by France. I will not know if France is the jackpot. France is the paymaster of Yaoundé. If Cameroon cannot fulfill its own promises, and France cannot fulfill their own promises, what more do we expect from them? And let us transition to the Southwest, what you call Southwest, what they call Boya and Southwest. Boya is not different from Bamenda, Boya town, in terms of roads. We've seen videos circulating how it is impossible for somebody to drive from mile 17 to Moya. They call it mile 18. That's just a 2-mile distance. It is totally impossible. That's in the middle of the city of Boya. Why this? This is Boya, just in their own technology, in their own terminology, but it's a regional headquarters, which they should say goes where the South goes where. If Bamenda is the Northwest is breathing. But if these two are not breathing in any form or shape, and these two cities are major cities in the so-called Northwest Southwest, two big cities being managed, being run by these people from Yaoundé, can we say that we've not taken enough of them? Again to Boya, just this week, 27th, 31st, saw the Prime Minister doing what? Launching the campaign for the success for the election of Mr. Paul Biya. The Prime Minister is a native of Diam. People came from Diam to receive the Prime Minister in Boya. There's no road to Boya other than passing through Moya. They drove through those bad roads. They walked on foot to come and sit in Boya and receive the so-called Prime Minister, who himself could not even go to Kumba. He could not go to his own place. He can tell you the story, but the bottom line is there's no road in the first place. And there's no security for him because good roads is part of the security of any traveler. So he could not go there. But again, he finds our people, most of the chiefs, who travel from the BLM on bad roads to come and see Prime Minister Diangute in Boya. Diangute might never have planned to come to Boya. But these are the very people who sat down and wrote again. Come to presidential campaign for Mr. Paul Biya here, Mr. Paul Biya here in Boya. Launch the presidential campaign for him when they have all these bad roads. Just Friday to Sunday, 27th to 31st, I think. And then, of course, yes, the colonial governor was able to go to Kumba. He passed through the very bad road. Because there's no road to Kumba, or rather passing through the very bad road. They go to Kumba to do what? To promise silver. Who believes in those promises? Talking about roads, we cannot just criticize them without looking back at history. What happened to us? No. What a road maintenance pool. What a community development pool where the people did not have a tar road. They had the people to maintain the roads for themselves. They filled the potholes because those were their own roads. Either they could even use anything to fix it, to at least repair the road that would have prevented an accident. They could use their hose to cut a gutter. So run through it. Where did all these things go to? Where are all these things? They stole all the equipment during the Yaoundé. We don't know where they went to. Should they ever account for all this? Of course. I think by the end of this thing, when we separate, there will be reparation. They have to account for what happened to our equipment. They have to account for what they did to us. This is not what we signed up to. We should nobody ever signs up for death. You don't leave an expert specialized hospital to go and get treatment in a health center, in a clinic, in a dispensary. That's what we did. So again about roads. Roads to us and to the world, they form part of what is called human development. Because you not develop without roads. You can live anywhere. Whatever thing you grow there to go and sell, you have to use the road to go. You can live anywhere. Whatever thing you want to go and buy, if it's on the city, you have to go through the road to go and buy that thing. Even medication, even anything that you have. I remember hundreds of our people die on the road to the hospital because there's no road. Just no road. If you have a heart problem, for example, in Bamenda, and the only heart hospital we have there, the best I know, is in Banso. How will you get there? How would the heart patient get to Banso just to receive treatment? Not even from the government hospital, but from a private hospital. You would die. Not because you would have died, but because you didn't have a road. Does the government or nobody expect you, the individual patient, to construct a road? Road is the full responsibility of the state and the agency. And then you can ask again, where is the city mayor of Amanda who promised the people that they were going to Amanda, whatever city in the Middle East, with the best roads in the world? Where are those roads? Those roads are still sitting there, calling themselves mayors, calling themselves district DOs, and parading for Yaoundé. All we can say at this stage is enough is over to you.
To a very sad event as well. A gruesome incident rocked the streets of Bamenda around the former Libyan neighborhood on Tuesday, June 3rd, as a 19-year-old native identified as Ben was brutally executed by gang members. The young man, who had recently returned to Bamenda after spending some time in Douala, was rounded up by gang members in Pinyin Quarter. Eyewitnesses report that Penn was taken to the former Libyan neighborhood where he was shot at close range with his hands tied behind his back and eyes blindfolded. The assassins reportedly fired 7 bullets at him, leaving him there dead. Well, according to sources, the motive behind the heinous act was Penn's declared intention to quit the armed gang. It is alleged that his decision to leave the gang did not sit well with his former associate, who saw it as a betrayal. Penn had apparently escaped to Douala before returning to Bamenda, where he spent 5 days. Upon his return, he was unaware of the fate that awaited him. The incident shows the dangers and brutality associated with general gang activities in Bamenda and Ambazonia in general. The family and friends of Penn are left to mourn the loss of a young life cut short to and by the senseless violence of gang warfare. Penn was laid to rest on Thursday, June 4th, at the Bamenda Cemetery, bringing a sober end to a life that had held so much promise. The community continues to grapple with the aftermath of these tragic events, calling for increased measures to prevent such incidents in the nearby future. Right, Mbeseha, when this report came into the newsroom, we didn't know exactly what to make of this armed gang. What could armed gang mean at this point? And the back and forth movement when going back to Douala, coming back to Bamenda, we were thinking, was he being pursued? Was he being traced? What could be the issue of this? Because for all we know, every life in Ambazonia matters to us. And as we're trying to, build up this report, we weren't certain of what the situation would have been? What would you think in this case?
Well,
Do
based
you
on
think it
what you
was
have told,
or trailed? What would you think? Yes, please go ahead.
well, all I will know is what you have told, but you take from that. See, in any developed society, be it Bamenda, be it Yaoundé, be it anywhere in the world, be it London, once the gangs over the streets, once the gangs take over the streets, recipe of failure of the administration. Because even the colonial administrators, the colonial master has the responsibility to maintain law and order in his own area where they control, in the cities that they claim to be in charge. If the thing has become so lawless that people just take the law and keep wish, adopt and arrest and detain where they want, it is absence of governance. It's not absence of responsibility for you or me, ordinary citizens. If the people do this and go unpunished, nobody is going to court. No gendarme is going to investigate. Who do you blame for this failure? It is the administration. Because it is their responsibility to do it. It is the reason why people pay taxes to them. It is the reason why people give them money to recruit gendarmes and police. But in Cameroon, what are they doing with the gendarmes and police? These are all two security elements. They are doing the same thing. There are so many in town. There's not even enough. They have added something called the B and all forms of the military. And so we don't know what happened to Bank before. The fact is that he has been killed in open daylight and his killers are going unpunished. As we speak, even Ambazonians that we belong, we don't have a court. Even if you got the perpetrators, we don't have a court to try them. We don't have a prison to send them to. The court system, the prison system is to the state. It's not our fault. Prison in Bamenda or the court in Bamenda or wherever it is. This is our court. Who pay the people? Who pay those judges? And so why are they not providing security when they are given these resources? It is absence of governance, generally speaking, or something to punish the Ambazonian. So while you in Ambazonia are fighting us, so be it. Take the result of what is happening. So the guy they kill, call him Pen. It's a Bamenda guy. Kill all the Bamenda people. What has that got to do with Mr. Lele Afrik, who's the governor in town? After all, he's not one of you. What has that got to do with the Corona Legion commander of the gendarmerie who just died? He's not one of you. He died in an accident. But all the gendarmes in the Northwest were under his control. It is he who was supposed to deploy them to go and investigate cases. And so they kill Pen by your name, they know that this is Bamenda guy. He's not a Mbunda guy. He's not a Wundu boy. And so they close their eyes to those things. Because punishment of the criminal depends upon who. If the victim is the person they would have wished him dead, nonetheless, that's fine. If the victim is one of the protected persons that would have protected him, a gendarme, a policeman, and a Wondo man, a Betty man, a francophone, they would act. You cannot shoot a Bamenda man like that. You cannot shoot a Bamenda man in open daylight in Bamenda or go free. They'll come for you. The gendarmes will come for you. Do not any Mbunda resident man there. Lele Afri would deploy all the forces from Mbunda to come and catch you. So why is he not doing the same thing to look for the killers of Pen, to killers of those people in Garabo, to look for the murderers of these people in Pinyin? Why are they not doing it? It's selective justice, pure selective justice. Until they prove me wrong, accuse accomplices to these offenses. Silence in the face of criminality is complicity in the crime. Inaction, where action would have been taken, is complicity in the crime. And so their silence, one, their refusal to act, two, makes them accomplices to whatever thing is happening, has happened to people, that just happened to Pen, that will happen tomorrow to you or to me. And so that's what it is. That's the bad truth. Let them come and prove us wrong. But the only way that they come and prove us wrong is not to talk. We don't have to have academic debate with them. We want to see action. Then go and act and bring the criminals to book. If they were looking for Abdul Karim, they'll go for him by day and night and catch him. And go and lock him up. But simple criminals in town. Some of these people who are even killing with dead guns, who are murdering people, who are catching people and saying they should change the taxi color. They are not catching them because they are their allies. We have not had anybody prosecuted for killing somebody who did not change his taxi color. Is that by error? No. It's because the victims are the people who do not change their taxi colors are Ambazonians. It's not because the government does not know them. They don't know them. And that's the most incompetent way. That crimes will be committed in daylight and they cannot be investigated. Even if they are investigated, no results ever come out. That cannot be that's not an accident. It's deliberate action. It is deliberate refusal to prosecute their own allies. Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha, thank you so much. And all the, the discussion that we've held this night, you've thrown in so much wisdom behind every one of the discussions brought to the front burner, especially in this gang case. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha, for your genuine and classic input on this discussion. But it's these other points that would have to let you go, knowing that over the weekend we would have so much time with you as well, and bringing some new discussions coming in from the home front. But right about now, we need to head over to other countries in Africa to see what's happening there.
Thank
Now the government of The government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has imposed a sweeping media blackout on coverage of the former President Joseph Kabila, escalating political tensions in the country. The directive issued by the nation's media regulatory authority prohibits all new outlets from reporting on Kabila's activities or conducting interviews with members of his political party. The announcement was made by the Christian Bosembo, head of the DR Congo's Higher Council for Audio, Visuals and Communication, who warned that any media outlet found in violation of the ban could face suspension or further sanctions. This media clampdown follows Kabila's high-profile return to the country last month, which has reignited tensions with his successor, President Felix Tshisekedi. Kabila, who ruled the mineral-rich nation from 2001 to 2019, has become a central figure in a deepening political crisis as the government moves to pursue legal action against him. Well, authorities are reportedly preparing to charge the former president with treason and allege he has links to the M23 rebel group, an armed militia that has been engaged in heavy fighting with the Congolese army in the eastern regions of the country. Kabila has previously denied any association with the group, and his supporters have dismissed the allegations as politically motivated. The M23 conflict has displaced thousands and further destabilized the volatile East, drawing regional and international concern. The government claims to possess intelligence linking Kabila to behind-the-scenes efforts to fuel the insurgency in a bid to undermine the Tshisekedi's administration. Well, media freedom advocates and opposition voices have sharply criticized the ban, describing it as an alarming setback for press freedom and democratic accountability. This is a dangerous precedent, said one Kinshasa-based journalist, speaking on condition of anonymity. Silencing the press does not solve political problems. It only hides them from public scrutiny. As tensions continues to mount, all eyes are now on how the government will enforce the restrictions and whether legal proceedings against Kabila will go ahead. With elections looming in the next year, the political landscape in DR Congo appears poised for future upheaval. Oh well, let's see what's happening in the U.S. Security Council resolution that on the foreign scene. Well, in a different development at the United Nations, the United States has vetoed a draft resolution put forward in the UN Security Council calling for an unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The resolution, supported by other 14 members of the Council, also called for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages and the lifting of restrictions impeding humanitarian aid into the war-torn region. The resolution aimed to address the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where months of conflict have resulted into the death of thousands of civilians and the displacement of hundreds of thousands more. The language of the draft urged all parties to cease hostilities permanently and unconditionally as well, reflecting widespread international concern over the escalating humanitarian catastrophe. Despite overwhelming international support for the resolution, the United States exercised its veto power, effectively blocking its adoption. U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the United Nations, Dorothy Sher, explained the rationale behind the U.S. position. She stated that while the United States supports a ceasefire in principle, the proposed resolution would undermine ongoing diplomatic efforts aimed at achieving a negotiated and sustainable end to the conflict. Ambassador Sher also expressed concern over the resolution's failure to explicitly condemn Hamas, the Islamist movement group that governs Gaza. She noted that the resolution would not call for Hamas to disarm or withdraw from Gaza, conditions that the U.S. views as essential to any lasting peace agreement. While the resolution does not name condemn Hamas, nor does it the group disarm and leave Gaza, Sher stated. The United States cannot support any measure that fails to hold Gaza accountable for its action, including its role in the October 7 attacks, and that does not contribute constructively to the broader diplomatic process. She also pointed out that while the United States, along with the United Kingdom and the European Union, designates Hamas as a terrorist organization, the United Nations itself has not formally adopted such a designation. This, she suggested, complicates efforts to reach consensus on how to address the role of Hamas in the current conflict. The veto has drawn criticisms from several council members and humanitarian organizations who argue that urgent international action is needed to halt the violence and alleviate the suffering of civilians in Gaza. Some diplomats expressed frustration that political divisions within the Security Council continues to stall meaningful resolutions amid a deepening humanitarian disaster. And so this latest veto highlights the ongoing diplomatic impasse at the United Nations and underscores the complex geopolitical dynamics shaping international response to Israel-Gaza war. It also reinforces the challenges facing multilateral efforts to broker a peace deal in one of the most protracted and volatile conflicts in the world today. And that's all we have on tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a look at the major stories. tonight on Undaunted, we told you that GCE board revises exam dates amidst Ambazonian pressure. Also tonight on Undaunted, we told you that La Republic de Cameroon abandoned project condemns Ambazonian population to deadly road blocks in Binka. The neglect of Ambazonian by the Paul Biya's region is seen through the deteriorating roads in Bamenda. That was a report we had today as well. Also tonight, we told you that a native of Pinyin identified as Ben was rounded up by gang members on the 3rd of June. On the African scene, we told you that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has described the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as getting worse by the day, while U.S. vetoes UN Security Council resolution calling for permanent ceasefire in Gaza. That's it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news on top stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha, our in-house analyst, and a team of technicians behind tonight's production, is good night and God bless.